Good evening, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to the December 5th Arvada City Council business meeting. I will now call our meeting to order. At this time, I'd like to call on Councilmember Lisa Smith to lead us in a moment of silent reflection in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes, please join me in a moment of silent reflection. And now the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. Ms. Rush, would you do the roll call, please?
Mayor Williams, Mayor Pro Tem Jones.
Here.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Here.
Councilmember Marriott.
Here.
Councilmember Mormon.
Here.
Councilmember Simpson.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Mr. Pfeiffer.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to excuse Mayor Williams from tonight's business meeting.
Motions to excuse Mayor Williams. All votes are cast. And that passes 6-0 with the mayor being absent. He let us know that he would not be here, and we wish him well. Presented are the minutes for the City Council business meeting dated November 7th, 2022. Are there any changes or corrections? Seeing none, those will stand as presented. We don't have any recognitions or presentations tonight, so we'll move on to the public comment portion of our meeting. And this is, again, an opportunity for you to come and speak to your City Council. While we might not answer you during the meeting, we will certainly listen actively and intently and have one of the members of our team follow up with you if there's something that needs to be followed up with. I've got a few here that have filled out a speaker's form, and we'll start with Mr. John Rogers, if you'd like to come to the podium. Yes, please.
Okay. I told the officer, I promise I'm not going to throw that or anything.
We
Okay.
appreciate that.
Good evening, my name is John Rogers. I live near, do I have to watch the 3 minutes?
We've got 3 minutes here on the thing, and so we'll reset that, so you've got a full 3 minutes.
I live near, and I'm here to speak to you about the Long Lake Park, Jefferson County Open Space Park, administered by the City of Arvada. It's located near the corner of 93 and 64th Avenue. It's adjacent to Ralston Creek Trail and the Fairmount Canal. It has a reservoir in it called Vern Lake, which is used for recreation, and I think it's part of Denver water supply. The problem, the reason I'm here, the last 4 years or more, the City Streets Division has been using this area for disposal of what the Director of Public Works called, quoting from an email, leaves from street sweeping operations. If it was leaves, that'd be fine. Instead, the material has this in it. What's been deposited is fairly contaminated, all manner of garbage and litter. I collected this bag in like a 20-foot walk, like from here to there, in a few minutes. The area is like 2 acres big. So you can, thousands and thousands of this is dumped in this area now because of the City of Arvada. I mean, you wouldn't let your kids play there. You wouldn't walk your dog there. It's like a landfill, and it's really gross. So about 2 years ago, I spoke to someone in the city, at the city, and the operations stopped for the last 2 years. I and about another half dozen volunteers, we spent the summer of 2020, the COVID summer, and we cleaned just the lake, because it all blows into the lake, the plastic. And it was, at the time, it was like 20 55-gallon trash bags. It would blow your mind. So I meant to say, you just need to go there. I mean, it'll be there tomorrow. So if you don't believe me or whatever, check it out. And what happens is, so it already started again. All the plastic blows into this Vern Lake and the canal. And then what stays as the debris breaks down, it's more and more concentrated like metal and glass. You guys hear me okay, right? Mm-hmm. Sorry. So you get the idea. It's bad, and it's actually pretty dangerous. I've been in communication with the city this fall. The Director of Public Works acknowledged and defended it. She stated the practice includes, again, quoting, removing trash debris. I mean, it would take, and we could tell you I did it, it would take many person weeks to even start cleaning this. So what I ask and respectfully request, I advised in some email, but they haven't responded again, is one, obviously just never ever do this again. Definitively stop putting this in that area. It's not okay. It's not what open space parks are for, I'm sure of it, right? and then remove the material that just got put in this fall. I watched them do it. It would just take the same crew and maybe a day or two and take it out, take it to a landfill. It's not going to fix itself. And then send a crew every month forever until it's been fixed up. And I asked that y'all would please do this and someone communicate with me about it.
Thank you. Absolutely. We'll definitely have someone from our team follow up with you on that specifically. Appreciate you being here to share that with us.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Should I take this?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Mr. Daniel Mondragon? Now, the mayor always, I think, messes it up, and I'm sure I did too.
Good evening. Got to go back to your Spanish class.
Yeah, I do.
My name is Daniel Mondragon, a resident here in Arvada. It's good to see you all again. Hope you are well. I come tonight with a request from 2 community organizations and 2 churches here in Arvada, Arvada United Methodist Church and Christ the King Episcopal Church, as well as the organizations Arvadans for Social Justice and Arvadans for Progressive Action. We have been watching with interest and now gratitude about the effort that has been done to rename Mount Evans as Mount Blue Sky. It was a long process over the last several months, going from a recommendation from leaders of the South Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes to the Colorado Geographic Naming Advisory Board. First, before that, it also did go to the commissioners of Clear Creek County for their approval, which they did approve. And then on November 17, the Naming Advisory Board approved the name change from several options that was presented to them. The reason for the name change is twofold. First of all, it is an opportunity to be able to change the name of a mountain that does produce pain and sorrow by members of our community. We have the opportunity every day to look west and see our beautiful Front Range. And Mount Evans is a key feature looking down upon us. Some people, as I indicated, look at that mountain, know who it was named for, and are reminded constantly of the events of 1864. I'll be leaving a letter for you all today, dated November 29. On that day, in 1864, the Sand Creek Massacre occurred in eastern Colorado. The effort to change the name is an opportunity to take the name of a person who was significantly found to be responsible for the atrocities that happened at Sand Creek. It is also an opportunity to rename it, a name that gives honor to the Arapaho and Cheyenne, gives them, because they are known as Blue Sky people or have a Blue Sky ceremony. Also, the Ute have been known as Blue Sky people. So it is an opportunity for all of us to recognize the pain of the past of some of our fellow citizens, to move forward together with a new name on that mountain. And so I come tonight with a letter and a draft resolution for your consideration and to take action on in the near future, sending this to the governor to urge him to send on the proposal to the National U.S. Board on Geographic Names. So I will leave this with you for your review, for your contemplation, and urging to make the action happen as soon as possible to get your word to the governor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you can leave that with Ms. Rush. Next, Lynn Heinkamp. I apologize. I know I said your last name wrong.
That's okay. I'm Lynn Heinkamp with the Arvada Historical Society, and we are here to invite you to our open house that is on Saturday, December 10th from 11 to 3. We will have great refreshments, music, hot cider, and wonderful raffles. And we invite everybody that's here or listening to come to this fine event. And that's this Saturday.
Thank you very much.
We also have, you're always giving presentations. We have a fun thing for you in the holiday spirit. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Morris, we're okay with this, yes?
Yes, you are. Under our code, it's permissible because I assume the size of the gift is appropriate.
Yes. Thank you very much to both of you, and we appreciate the work that the Historical Society does on behalf of Arvada. All right, next, I'd like to call to the podium the Westwoods Robotic Lego Team. And if you'll tell us your name.
I'm Henry. I'll let my other teammates introduce themselves.
I'm Anne.
I'm Felicia. I'm Sophia.
And I'm Jacob.
Welcome.
Hello, everyone. We're the Westwoods Wolves. We're part of the competitive STEM club called First Lego League Challenge. In this club, we find a problem with a certain subject, and this year it's energy. The problem we found is that renewable energy can take up way too much space and can affect wildlife, especially in large solar fields. So we researched and came up with 3 innovative solutions: solar umbrellas, solar awnings, and solar on playgrounds. We focused mostly on solar umbrellas and how they would work.
We have a diagram for how the solar umbrellas would work right here. At the top is the usual umbrella shape that folds inwards because of strategic placement of solar panels on the folds, and it can collect the sun from all sides. Then, wires run down the inside of the pole of the umbrella down to an inverter at the bottom to help hold the umbrella down and balance it. All of the electrical components...
Excuse me 1 second. Can we, if you put that in the center of that table there, that way we can,
Yes.
everybody can see it on TV, and it'll just, should project right up here on the screen.
All right, it's not zoomed in. Okay. All of the electrical components are at the bottom, and they connect to charging ports or to the grid, so you can charge your phone, or a restaurant or community the umbrella is connected to can receive energy. The umbrella is 10 feet tall, including electrical components, which may be below the ground, and has a maximum diameter of 6 feet at the top for maximum shade cover and sun ray collection. For an 8-sectioned umbrella, it would cost around $200 per solar panel and $1,000 for the inverter.
Our solution will have a wide impact on the environment around it, whether it is restaurants, busy parks, or rural army camp that is in need of energy. Rather than taking up large spaces of earth like solar fields, this umbrella will provide shade and energy wherever needed. For recreational areas, this solution will provide shade and energy will provide shade while gathering solar energy out of the public site. It can increase cheap, renewable energy use in urban environments and can get energy to rural areas where it's needed. We are trying to share our solution to make this world a better place.
That's it.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate your innovative thought process around renewable energy.
Excuse me, Mayor Pro Tem, I'd also like to recognize the group. I've had the opportunity to work with them before, and I'm really excited with the creative ideas they come up with, and I hope this is something we could install in our park soon. So thank you for all your endeavor there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, is there anyone else here tonight that would like to address the City Council on an item that's not on our agenda? Yes, sir? Sorry, I was late to sign up. That's fine. If you can just come to the podium, that would be great.
And since you've got the camera on. My name is Ace King. I live at 8220 Chase Way.
Hang on 1 second. Is
sorry.
that for, were you going to speak in one of the, no?
Just regular.
Just regular public hearing, okay.
Okay.
Then we'll put this one on this side.
All right. So
Then, go ahead.
Okay. This last Saturday, my wife was in the backyard when this wolf belongs to the people behind us, jumped over a 6-foot-tall fence and attacked a small dog that we're taking care of. My wife was able to find a broken branch and beat the wolf into dropping the dog. The wolf then jumped over another fence and roamed up and down the street. I called 911, as did another neighbor. Soon there were 2 police officers and 2 animal control officers on the block. They saw the wolf as well as the half-hearted attempts of the wolf's owner to catch it. The animal ran through several yards, and according to one of the officers, it might have attacked another dog. This photo was taken through my front door as the wolf looked at me like a snack. The owners actually have 4 wolves. My neighbors and I have complained endlessly about the near continuous howling. One wolf starts howling and the others join in. When I spoke with the owners about it, one of them told me that they didn't hear any noise, even though the howling could go on for half an hour, or longer. I don't know what the outcome was on Saturday, but yesterday the owner was in their backyard building some sort of enclosure made from chicken wire about 8 feet tall. It's an ugly, sagging, half-assed effort that I doubt will make a difference, and we're stuck looking at it. The owner also seems to have bought a couple of the little compressed air horns that you see at sporting events, and when the wolves start howling, now he gives off a couple of loud honks from that and yells at the wolves, which is almost as bad as the howling itself. I would greatly appreciate it if you could take a look at the current regulations for wolves in Arvada, because it might be time for a few little adjustments or tweaks. If a wolf can jump a 6-foot fence and attack a dog, imagine it jumping into your backyard when children are there. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your input, and I know the city team is working on this as well. Any others before I close the public comment? Ms. Rush, we don't have anybody online. Okay, thank you. All right, well, I will close this section of the public comment, and we'll move into the consent agenda items. The first consent agenda item is R22-102, a resolution approving license agreements between the City of Arvada and the City and County of Denver, acting by and through its Board of Water Commissioners for utility crossings of their easements. Excuse me. Second, R22-103, a resolution authorizing an increase to a blanket purchase order to the Hill Petroleum Company for from $835,000 to $915,000 for the purchase of fuel used in city vehicles and equipment. Next, R22-104, a resolution authorizing an amendment number 2 to the agreement by and between the City of Arvada and PCL Construction, Inc., awarding contractor Phase 2 and establishing contractor's guaranteed maximum price for Phase 2 of the construction management general contractor price for Phase 2, for Phase 2 of construction management general contractor agreement for the pre-construction services for the rehabilitation and modification of the filter and solids handling systems at the Ralston Water Treatment Plant in an amount not to exceed $4.381 million. Next, R22-105, a resolution authorizing an agreement between the City of Arvada and Old Town Business Improvement District for the fiscal year 2023 programs and services in Old Town Arvada. And the final item on the consent agenda is R22-106, a resolution accepting a general warranty deed from Emma Salmon and Mario Muniz Tena for additional right-of-way at 7100 Independence Street, Arvada, Colorado, 80004. Mr. Marriott.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move that consent agenda items R22-102 through 22-106 all be approved.
Motions for approval. All votes are cast, and that passes 6-0 with the mayor being absent. All right, we don't have any resolutions on our agenda tonight. Next, we have ordinances scheduled for first reading. Ms. Simpson.
All right, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I move that CB 21-108, an ordinance repealing and reenacting the Section 40.5 no trespass orders for city-owned property of Article 2 miscellaneous offenses of Chapter 62 offenses of the Arvada City Code be approved on first reading, ordered published in full, and a public hearing set for December 19th at 6:15 p.m.
Motions for approval. All votes are cast, and that passes 6-0 with the mayor being absent. All right. Next on the agenda is the ratification of the Arvada Economic Development Association AEDA members. Do we have a council member that would like to speak to this?
I think we want the city manager.
Or I'm sorry, Ms. Gillis.
I was ready. You threw me for a loop here.
Yeah, I threw myself for a loop.
Okay.
Wrong note.
We're in this together. Per the Arvada Economic Development Association bylaws, the organization may have 17 directors. With existing vacancies and expiring terms, the AEDA Board of Directors will have 6 vacancies for 2023. The board assembled its nomination committee to review director candidates and make recommendations to the board at its November board meeting for 3-year terms beginning 2023. At the board meeting on November 8th, 2022, the AEDA board unanimously approved the motion to appoint 4 candidates for renewing 3-year terms of service on the AEDA Board of Directors, including Dino Dardano, Brian Bryant, Gina Shelley, and Paul Duncan, and also to appoint Larry Barker and Kristen Bernhardt to 2 new 3-year terms of service to the City Council for approval and ratification. Staff recommends approval.
Thank you. And what I was looking for earlier was the light of Mr. Marriott's to light up because I figured he would want to speak to this. And so, Mr. Marriott.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll start. I believe we'd like to do these one at a time rather than as a package. So I'll get started, and I'll move that Dino Dardano be reappointed to a 3-year term on the AEDA board ending December 31st, 2025.
All votes are cast, and that passes 6-0 with the mayor being absent.
Thank you. I move that Brian Bryant be reappointed to a 3-year term on the AEDA board ending December 31st, 2025.
Thank you, and that passes 6-0 with the mayor being absent.
Thank you. I move that Gina Schley be reappointed to a 3-year term on the AEDA board ending December 31st, 2025.
Thank you, and that passes 6-0 with the mayor being absent.
I move that Paul Duncan be reappointed to a 3-year term on the AEDA board ending December 31st, 2025.
And that passes 6-0 with the mayor being absent.
Okay. I move that Larry Barker be appointed to a 3-year term on the AEDA board ending December 31st, 2025.
Mr. Pfeiffer.
Is there any concern for the vote? There shouldn't be any conflict, right? This individual works for
Our Mayor Pro Tem.
Mayor Pro Tem. That's why I thought we were calling him individually versus a group, because the recommendation is to read him out as a group. So can we have just clarification? I don't think there's a conflict of interest, but
It's not.
But it does as a direct report to David.
And I'm happy to recuse myself if I need to.
I don't think it's a big deal, but can we just get point of clarification?
I don't think a recusal is required, but if you want to do that in an abundance of caution, you can do that. Since AEDA is a separate organization, I'm not as concerned about the relationship, the reporting relationship. Yes.
Okay, just need a point of clarification. He's been on there for a while, I believe, anyways, so, okay.
And for the record, I didn't know that that was taking place, so I had no influence on their decision to do that. I know, I'm sure. All votes are cast, and that passes 6-0 with the mayor being absent, with my understanding that I had no involvement in that process at all.
All right, Your Honor, I move that Kristen Bernhardt be appointed to a 3-year term on the AEDA board ending December 31st, 2025.
Thank you. All votes are cast, and that passes 6-0 as well. with the mayor being absent. That was the last one?
That was it.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the work of the Arvada Economic Development Association, as well as the committed board members that we have. It's a great group of individuals. All right. I'll now open the public hearing for the substantial amendment to the City of Arvada Community Development Block Grant Citizen Participation Plan and R22-107, a resolution approving an amendment to the Arvada Citizen Participation Plan for the Consolidated Strategy and Submissions for Housing and Community Development. Ms. Gillis.
Community Economic Development Director Ryan Stuchelski will provide an introduction.
Thank you.
So what this item is part of our relationship with HUD is, and one of our requirements is HUD, is that we have a community development system participation plan to ensure that in the expenditure of HUD funds that we are reaching out to the community and making sure that we're engaging them, and particularly low to moderate income individuals. We do have this plan, but HUD has asked us to update the plan with some additional language. So in the consolidated, the Community Development Citizen Participation Plan, there are some red lines there, and in the section that talks about the amendment, it talks about what qualifies as being a substantially different plan. And in the previous language, it was anything that equated to more than 25% more than our allocation. A change in how we use that was a substantial. HUD has asked us to expand that language, and so it's gone from that one clarifying point of more than 25% of your allocation to about 7 different bullet points, the 25% being one of them, but other qualifying statements. So the substantial change that we're making tonight is just adding more robust language that broadens the types of things that would qualify as a substantial change to how we're using HUD funding. This gives more access and more information to our community if these changes have occurred. So we are changing kind of the underlying communication plan related to that at the request of HUD to have more robust language.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Russ, are there any members of the public that wish to speak to this? Okay. So I'll now close the public hearing and allow council member questions or comments and action on resolution R22-107, a resolution approving an amendment to the Arvada Citizen Participation Plan for the Consolidated Strategy and Plan Submission for Housing and Community Development. Ms. Smith?
I'll make the motion if anyone else has.
I don't see any other questions. Proceed with your motion.
All right. I move that R22-107, a resolution approving an amendment to the Arvada Citizen Participation Plan for the Consolidated Strategy and Plan Submission for Housing and Community Development, be approved.
Motions for approval. All votes are cast, and that passes 6-0 with Mayor Williams being absent. Thank you. Next item for public hearing is public hearing on substantial amendment to the 22 Annual Action Plan for the 2022 Community Development Block Grant Funding and R22-108, a resolution approving the submission of the first substantial amendment to the 2022 Annual Action Plan for the Community Development Block Grant CDBG program to reallocate additional CDBG funds received from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD. Ms. Gillis.
Back to Community Economic Development Director Ryan Stuchelski.
So in line with the communication plan and in line with the HUD in August of this year, I believe, let us know that we were going to receive some additional funding of about $18,000, $18,861 to be exact, above our current 2022 allocation. As part of that, what we are required to do is tell them how we are going to spend the money. And so what this motion is doing is saying that we're accepting the $18,000 of additional money and that we're going to be putting it towards our essential home repairs program.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Rush, do we have any member of the public who wishes to speak? I'll close the public comment section, and we'll close the public hearing and allow council members for questions, action on Resolution 22-108.
I don't think we need a motion.
We need a motion on the resolution. There's no one.
The resolution requires a vote. So let me scroll down here to the motion, and I can hand that off to whoever would like to take it.
I've got it, Ms. Morris, if you like.
Mr. Marriott, proceed.
Okay, thanks. I move that R 22-108, a resolution approving the submission of the first substantial amendment to the 2022 Annual Action Plan for the Community Development Block Grant CDBG program to reallocate additional CDBG funds received from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, be approved.
Motions for approval. All votes are cast, and that passes, excuse me, 6-0 with the mayor being absent. Sorry for the confusion on that. I appreciate your help. Next item for public hearing is Council Bill 22-079, an ordinance amending Article 1 in general and Article 2 civil emergency or local disaster regulations of Chapter 26 civil emergency or local disaster of the Arvada City Code, ordinance number 4827. Ms. Gillis? Or I'm sorry.
Actually, Your Honor, it'll be me.
Yes.
This proposed ordinance incorporates necessary and timely revisions to Chapter 26 of our city code. The revisions include select additions and updates to Section 2633, which is the definitions section, additions to Section 2635, which is titled Filing of Declaration. It includes clarification of Section 2638, titled Powers, and a repeal of Section 2638.5, Powers of Municipal Court, and finally clarification of Section 26-43, titled Duties of the Community Resilience Coordinator. These revisions align with current terminology and updated partner agencies identified, including Colorado Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. Tonight, the Arvada City team recommends that the City Council approve CB 22079, an ordinance amending Article 1 in general and Article 2, civil emergency, or local disaster regulation of Chapter 26, civil emergency, or local disaster of the Arvada City Code.
Thank you very much. I'll open the public comment portion of this. Ms. Rush, do we have anyone wishing to speak? Great. I will close the public comment portion of the hearing and open it for council member questions or action. Mr. Moorman.
Yeah, I do have a question. I'm just curious. I noticed that the term local disaster was changed to just disaster, and I'm just curious for an explanation on that.
So I think we have Melissa Ryder here in the audience. She may know this better than I do. My impression was that it was to align us more with the way that the state terms things, but I will hand it off to Melissa.
It's great having subject matter experts in the room.
Yeah. Yes, it's to align with Colorado state statutes.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
All right. Thank you very much. It's a long walk for that answer. Any other comments or action? Ms. Smith?
I can make the motion.
Mr. Moorman, I just want to make sure I still had your light on. Are you good? Okay. Ms. Smith, go ahead.
All right, I move that CB 22-079, an ordinance amending Article 1 in general and Article 2, civil emergency or local disaster regulations of Chapters 26, civil emergency, or local disaster of the Arvada City Code be approved on final reading, numbered 4827, and ordered published by title only.
Thank you. Motions for approval. All votes are cast, and that passes 6-0 with the mayor being absent. Next item for public hearing is Council Bill 22-080, an ordinance authorizing an additional appropriation for fiscal year 2022, ordinance number 4828. Mr. Archer, it appears as though you will take this one. Ms. Gillis, would you like to introduce Mr. Archer?
Finance Director Brian Archer will speak to the appropriation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Gillis. Mayor Pro Tem, Council, thank you for the opportunity to get to come talk to you about our supplemental appropriation. Many times you've heard us refer to this as our cleanup ordinance. Hopefully, the majority of the items tonight are very familiar to City Council. These are items that we've spoken about throughout the year that did not have formal action. What do I mean by formal action? The only way to amend the budget is through ordinance. It requires a public hearing. And so you can see on this slide, there's 3 times throughout the year that we do that. Once when we approve the original budget, which as you know is a year-long process that culminates with City Council approving next year's budget in the October of the prior year. The second time is during our carryover ordinance in April, where we capture items that were not completed in the prior year, grants that may have happened between the last time City Council approved the budget, and items that come up. That happens usually around April. You will notice that we did put a green box around what we call resolutions. These are smaller changes that happen, and we want to make the ability to do things quicker, so we don't do them through ordinance, but they still come to City Council. Most of these are grants that do not require an IGA, but do require formal approval. And then finally, we do the cleanup ordinance. If we take a look, there's a lot of numbers on the screen, what we're trying to represent. Council has approved the original budget. Council did approve the cleanup ordinance. That left a approved budget of about $354 million. Below that are what we're asking Council to approve tonight by fund, approximately $22 million of supplemental for a final revised budget of $375,184,908. All of these items have to have a couple of factors. Number one, they either have to have revenue or some sort of funding to cover the request, or we have to have a sufficient reserve. Fortunately, every one of these items does have that. We'll quickly run through each fund. We'll try not to spend too much time on this. The detail is included in the packet. So approximately $2.5 million for the general fund. All increases are being funded by increases in grants or sales tax. These should all look familiar. Fortunately, we had an increase in sales tax this year that does require us to transfer additional funds over to the CIP through the 98-101 ordinance. 20% of any sales tax needs to go over there. So that's about $1.5 million. $388,000 for the debt service on Myers Pool, some grants to outside agencies, and then some increases related to inflation throughout the general fund, about $458,000. In the streets fund, we did add approximately $3.3 million of one-time funding for 2021 carryover. This was missed when we did our carryover ordinance, so we're adding it into the supplemental. Should be very familiar. In the Housing Authority, we talked about this just a minute ago, but they did receive additional funding both in Section 8 housing and Main Street housing programs, so we're asking permission for that. We did get the second tranche of the ARPA funding this year, so we're asking Council to approve that, about $5.5 million. Some items in the Parks Fund should look very familiar. We had presentations on each one of these items, and then again, increases in operations due to inflation. Some grant funds that we received in both of our police tax increments to help with bulletproof vests and some additional equipment purchases. Individual items in the CIP, many of these are duplicative. They're transfers that come from individual funds, such as the general fund or parks fund, and then they have to be rebudgeted in our CIP. So these should all look very familiar. Again, some increases at the water fund related directly to inflation. Specifically, these are chemicals out at our treatment facility. The golf fund is a nice story this year. We talked about this during our quarterly reports. They had increased revenues, increased rounds, increased visitations in the restaurant, and certainly we need to increase the expenditures to service them. So you'll notice that. The insurance fund, we've spoken about this in our third quarter report. We had a couple of large vandalism events and then a couple of large water main breaks. So this is to appropriate for those. In the computer fund, we have $3 million for our new ERP solution. We're hoping that we can get that is well underway actually right now. The RFP is out on the street, hoping to get some of that started next year. $125,000 for some cybersecurity software. And then what we're noticing as our PD is using all forms of communication, cell phones are not lasting as long as they normally would. And so we're having to shorten the time period on that. This is to help buy those. Finally, some increased costs in the vehicle fund. So see the purchase of a dump truck, and then inflation related to the many, many vehicles that they've ordered this year. And then some final upgrades in our building fund. So that's a quick rundown. Any individual questions I can answer?
Let me turn my microphone back on. I'll open up the public comment first. There's no one here for that. We'll close that and now open it up for council questions or action. Mr. Pfeiffer?
Do you want me to make the act?
You're the only light that came on.
Okay, just
so.
making sure here. Hold on. I think I was on the wrong. Here I am. This is on council bills. Let me hold on. Yeah. There's a lot of scrolling on that page. I move that Council Bill 22-080, an ordinance authorizing an additional appropriation for fiscal year 2022, be approved on final reading number 4828 and ordered published by title only.
Thank you. Motions for approval, and I'll just speak to the motion. Mr. Archer, you did a fantastic job in recapping that. We really appreciate the work that your group does to ensure that all of the money is put in the appropriate buckets. So yeah. All votes are cast, and that passes 6-0 with the mayor being absent.
Should I have channeled Bob Dyer in this conversation? I knew you were waiting for it.
All right. The next item for public hearing is Council Bill 22-081, an ordinance repealing and reenacting Article 5, Cross-Connection Control Program of Chapter 102, Utilities of the Arvada City Code, Ordinance Number 4829. Ms. Gillis.
Utilities Director Sharon Israel will present this item.
Thank you. Ms. Israel.
Thank you, Ms. Gillis. The infrastructure work system does a lot of things, and one of them is providing the community with a safe, reliable, and high-quality water supply. One of the ways that we do that is by protecting pollution and contaminants from entering our water system. A cross-connection is a point in a plumbing system where potable water supply is connected to some kind of non-potable source. And if that happens, if that backflow happens to connect the non-potable source back into our water supply, it can endanger public health and safety. There are state regulations that govern public water systems like ours that include a requirement to maintain a cross-connection control program. And we need to update the city's ordinance in order to comply with the state requirements. The city's original cross-connection control program ordinance was adopted by City Council in 1986, and there have been updates and amendments to the program over the years, most recently in 2009. It is time to update these again. There are some updates related to duties and responsibilities as part of this ordinance change. We have also updated the annual inspection program, which requires those folks that operate a backflow prevention device to have a test by a qualified testing agency once a year. And if they don't do that, this ordinance also includes financial penalties for failing to conduct an annual inspection. There are also some additional new requirements on a structured process to ensure compliance should an uncontrolled cross-connection or backflow event occur. Adoption of the proposed ordinance will allow the city to conform to current industry practices and standards, and again to the state regulatory changes. So the city team does recommend approval of this ordinance.
Thank you very much. I'll now open the public comment portion, and there's no one here wishing to speak, so I'll close the public comment portion and open up the hearing for council member questions or action. Ms. Simpson?
I'll make the motion if there are no questions.
Mr. Marriott.
So I do have a question. Thank you. So, Ms. Israel, the question I have is our annual inspection program. The deadline for the inspections on backflow prevention devices is changing with this annual inspection program?
It is officially July 31st with this ordinance each year.
And if a property owner hasn't gotten it done by July 31st, what happens next?
There will be a late fee. This is something that's new as part of this ordinance, so there'll be a late fee associated with that. And then if there's continued failure to test, non-compliance with the ordinance, then we introduce penalties after 30 days.
And how much is the late fee?
The late fee proposed would be part of a fee schedule adopted administratively, so that's not in the ordinance currently. But the team is looking at what other communities like ours are charging and is looking to propose a $500 late fee. The tests themselves cost about $100, and there's plenty of capacity in the community to have all the tests done in the first half of the year. So the $500 penalty, again, would be an administrative adopted fee. That's the discussion right now.
Okay. So let me ask you a question. So up to now, what's been the penalty for late testing of your backflow device?
We send a nasty letter, and then we make phone calls. And then if the tests still don't happen, ultimately, after really aggressive and time-consuming communication on our team's part, we do a shut-off of the water connection. So we'll actually go out there and do that.
Okay. And up to now, up to this year or last year, what was our timing of when a backflow inspection had to be done?
This year, we adopted a July 31st date, which was moved up in the year. Before then, it was, I want to say, October. Okay. Folks had a little bit more time. The problem that we have is a lot of these devices are on irrigation system connections. And so there's just a window of time from about May to September when those irrigation systems are operating. And so we need to make sure that that we're setting the right time of year for those tests to happen.
Okay. So let me ask you another question. So if you're thinking about, and you said the fee schedule would be adopted administratively, so not by us on City Council, and you're contemplating a $500 fee for being late on your test, I guess this would be my comment to you more than anything, since we don't have a hand in that at all, seems a little excessive for something that up to now costs nothing. That's a big hammer when you look at the cost of the test might only be $100. I realize what you're looking for here is compliance, but particularly in the first year that you have a penalty fee associated with being late, it seems like an awful big penalty given the size of the issue. So I would encourage you, as you contemplate this fee that we won't get to weigh in on, that you think about it in terms of your organization and your requirement to perform these and being efficient performing them, but also think about the customers who may or may not, one, be aware that they've drifted into a territory where they're about to be penalized financially, and what an appropriate financial penalty might be given what the size of the issue actually is. So that's my first comment. The second comment I would make is, because this is a change, and I realize that the change happened this past summer, but because this is a change from how backflow prevention testing has been done, at least by convention up to now, I would encourage you to do some outreach to the providers of backflow prevention testing, as well as the people who actually have backflow prevention devices, and make sure that they're aware. Because while it sounds like, this is really easy, I mean, you just sometime between January and July, just get it done. In my own particular case, as a practical matter, it's actually quite a bit more difficult than that, because if you have, as most commercial buildings do, multiple backflow devices, not a single device, and generally one of those is on your irrigation system, you can't test it in January, and you can't test it in February, and you can't test it in March, and you might be able to test it. You can probably test it starting in April. So it's really not as big a window of time as it might seem. And like most commercial property owners, I believe, attempt to get their multiple backflow prevention devices tested all at once, because that's certainly much more efficient for the providers. So I believe the providers don't do a lot of testing on backflow prevention devices where landscaping is included for the first quarter of the year, but then in the second quarter of the year, they're trying to fit a year's worth of work into there. And so I just think when we're making a change like this at one, it's a much tighter time frame. And two, there's a significant penalty for failing at getting it done in time. That adequate disclosure, adequate notification of everybody who has a backflow prevention device, which I believe you have information of where they all are. I would say at a very minimum that is warranted, that at least everybody who possesses one of these devices that must be inspected knows the rules ahead of time and doesn't find out what the rules were on August 5th when they haven't complied, and now they've got a significant financial penalty for something they didn't really know about. So anyway, that's all I have.
Thank you. Ms. Simpson, you may proceed with the motion.
All right. I move that CB 22-081, an ordinance repealing and reenacting Article 5, Cross-Connection Control Program of Chapter 102, Utilities of the Arvada City Code be approved on final reading, numbered 4829, and ordered published by title only.
Thank you. All votes are cast, and that passes 6-0 with the mayor being absent. Thank you. The next item for public hearing is Council Bill 22-082, an ordinance repealing, retitling, and reenacting Section 58-1, Powers of Judge, of Article 1 in general of Chapter 58, Municipal Court of the Arvada City Code, and repealing certain other provisions of Article 1 of Chapter 58, Ordinance Number 4830. Ms. Morris.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Arvada Municipal Court is a crucial part of our city government. Its primary purpose is to ensure justice in matters coming before it and to help maintain Arvada's quality of life. Although the municipal court plays a vital role in municipal operations, very few existing city code provisions address the powers of the court or its authority to conduct its business. Although these topics are addressed to one extent or another in state law and various appellate decisions, Arvada's presiding municipal court judge, Catherine Kurtz, has recommended that the city code be revised to more accurately reflect the nature of municipal code operations. Specific highlights of the proposed ordinance includes setting forth in more detail the jurisdiction and powers of the court, including the emergency powers of the court, which we just a few minutes ago repealed out of Chapter 26. It states what the applicable rules are and provides authority for the court to adopt local rules. It declares sessions of the court to be open to the public. It explains the sentencing authority of the court, acknowledges the role probation officers play, outlines circumstances under which bail is appropriate, clarifies the contempt powers of the judge, specifies the circumstances under which a municipal court judge may appoint defense counsel, and recognizes the important role that parents of juveniles play in the criminal justice system. The Arvada team recommends that CB 22082, an ordinance repealing, retitling, and reenacting Section 58-1, Powers of Judge of Article 1 in general of Chapter 58, Municipal Court of the Arvada City Code, and repealing certain other provisions of Article 1 of Chapter 58 be approved on final reading. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll open the public comment portion. There are no one wishing to speak on this item, so I'll close the public comment portion and open the hearing for council member questions or action. Mr. Pfeiffer.
If there's not any questions?
I don't see any lights. You're free to make your motion.
I move that Council Bill 22-082, an ordinance repealing, retitling, and reenacting Sections 58-1, Power of Judge of Article 1 in the general of Chapter 58, Municipal Court of the Arvada City Code, and repealing certain other provisions of Article 1 of Chapter 58 be approved on final reading number 4830 and ordered published by title only.
Motions for approval. All votes are cast, and that passes 6-0 with the mayor being absent. Next item for public hearing is Council Bill 22-083, an ordinance amending Section 98-70, exempt sales, and repealing and reenacting Section 98-78, exemptions of Article 3, sales and use tax of Chapter 98, taxation of the Arvada City Code, ordinance number 4831. Ms. Gillis.
Thank you. Revenue Manager Ezekiel Vasquez will present this item.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. Thank you for having me here tonight. Tonight I'm going to talk about some proposed changes to the tax section of the Municipal Code of Ordinances. And we do have a presentation. I don't know if that's up or not. Just a couple slides. Okay, thank you. All right, so as you all might know, we, in the Arvada Code of Ordinances, as it is currently written, any fee that is part of a purchase price of a taxable item is also subject to Arvada sales tax. Now, this comes into play because there are a couple of new fees that the state of Colorado is imposing, and one of them is a single-use plastic bag fee, and the other is a retail delivery fee. In House Bill 21-1162, the Colorado legislature passed a law that essentially is going to prohibit single-use plastic bags by 2024. And this is going into effect. It's going to be a staged approach. First stage is beginning January 1st, 2023, where all retailers will be required to collect 10 cents for each plastic bag provided to customers. And the second fee that we're talking about, actually before we move on to the second fee, of that 10 cents per bag, 6 cents will come to the city, and the remaining 4 cents will be held by the retailers. Okay, now the second fee that we're talking about was passed by Senate Bill 21-260, and that imposes a 27-cent retail delivery fee for any item that's delivered by an automotive vehicle. Now, that 27-cent retail delivery fee, all of that money will go to the state. The city won't get any of that. And the reason that we're talking to you guys tonight is because these fees, again, are taxable as our code is currently written. So what we're asking is that you all consider exempting these fees from Arvada sales tax. And the main cause for that is that if we exempt these fees from sales tax, then businesses will be able to conduct business as they have been in Arvada. They won't have to do any additional accounting for or calculating of taxes on these small fees. And I believe that's the end of the presentation.
Thank you very much. I'll open the public comment portion of the hearing, and I don't believe we have anyone scheduled to speak for that. So I'll close the public comment section and open up for council member questions or action. The board is lighting up. I believe, Mr. Marriott, you were first.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just have a question. Who is in charge of enforcing the bag prohibition or bag fee?
Mr. Marriott, members of council, we are at the city, so my team specifically would be in charge of ensuring that the businesses do collect the fee and remit it back to the city, that portion that belongs to the city, the 6 cents per bag.
Okay, so how will you do that?
We do have an established process that we follow in order to recover any delinquent taxes. And what we're going to do is we're just going to use that same process. It's a varied approach. What we do is we conduct audits, we also examine tax returns, and we have a multi-step approach to reaching out to folks that are delinquent or folks that have underpaid. So that, and I don't want to bore you with all the details, but we follow a process where we email, then we call, then we do a site visit.
Right. So that's how you collect delinquent taxes. But how will you? I think the goal of this is to take bags out of the equation. How will you know if a retailer is handing out bags or not?
Yes, sir. The way that we intend to do that is we So this is something that has been happening in Colorado. Other cities, as you all might know, have been charging fees for bags. Denver has, Fort Collins has, Boulder has. And we've reached out to those municipalities. We've asked them, okay, how do you guys ensure this is being done and done properly? So we've gotten a lot of tips from those other municipalities. And the process that we're going to follow is these retailers are going to remit to us on a quarterly basis. So they'll essentially fill out a return form that states how many bags they provided to customers, and then based on that, they'll calculate how much money is coming to us, to the city. And we do factor in a couple different things, as you may be aware. At the self-checkout, not everyone's 100% honest, so there's going to be some bags that are not accounted for. And then how we're going to compare those is we're going to look at how many bags did the business order, and then compare it to how much they filed, and then do the math there and see if it's within that error threshold for those items that we found.
So if I'm hearing you right, you're going to require the retailers in Arvada to quarterly tell you how many bags they ordered and how many they have left, so you can tell how many are missing, and then you can check that against how many bag fees they gave you?
We are not going to require them to do that quarterly, but we will, just like when we conduct our normal audits of businesses, we will reach out, and as needed basis, we'll ask them for that information. But it won't be, because again, we don't want this to become an undue burden for businesses. Again, this is something that we are enforcing. It's a state law that was passed, and we get to enforce it. So again, we don't want to make this an overly burdensome process. But yes, you're correct in your summary that that's the way that we're going to evaluate and verify that they are remitting the correct amount.
Okay, so let me give you an example. If one of the retailers in Old Town, let's say the Army Navy surplus store, are they going to have to report how many bags they bought ever? Or only if you audit them?
If we audit them.
Okay. So there's no additional burden on them to report something new that they've never reported before?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. They would just have to send the money that they received from the bags.
Okay. But if they decide to no longer use bags, and for instance, give boxes out instead of bags,
yes.
You'll take them at their word, and they don't have to do anything additionally.
Yes, sir. Yes. So if they report to us that they're not providing any bags and they don't send us any revenue, then within reason, we're going to say, okay, yeah, this seems reasonable, or no, it doesn't, and let's do an audit.
Okay. So the presumption is that you find it reasonable that somebody would not give out bags anymore, because I think that's what this is about. It's not really about raising revenue. It's about
correct.
It's about discouraging the use of bags. And so if somebody does what this is intended to do, you would believe that's what they did.
Yes, sir. Yes, we would. Okay. And yeah, again, as with other taxes, sometimes we get tips from citizens, and they tip us off, and we do follow up on those. If they say, I'm going to this location and they're not charging me tax, or it's not the correct amount of tax, if someone says, oh, they're providing bags but they're not charging me, then we would follow up on that lead as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Mormon.
I'd like to reserve the motion and then have a comment after that.
Okay. Will you hit your light again so I won't forget? Mr. Pfeiffer.
So it's really to discourage single-use bags, right? So, but, and this might be a little further than what you're talking to us tonight about, but I would like us to have on the radar, like, what do we do with this revenue and how will it be applied? Because yeah, it's coming in, but I just don't want it to be in the general fund. If it's to help with some of our green initiatives or recycling, then it should go to that program.
That is the current plan.
Okay, so will we get more information on that?
Yes, you will.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Ms. Simpson.
Thank you. I was actually going to echo Mr. Pfeiffer's sentiments in follow-up to Mr. Marriott's. I was going to ask approximately how much additional enforcement do we expect this is going to take? Is it going to take up the majority of the 0.6 cents collected? Or do we have any idea what those revenue numbers might look like?
Yes, we do. So we've done an estimate these revenues, and again, we've reached out to municipalities that have been collecting this fee, and we've took a couple different factors into the equation, and we're estimating around $200,000 in the first year, and then we're thinking that'll drop off substantially because folks will get used to bringing their own bags.
Perfect. And just in terms of additional labor costs, about how much do we anticipate in that first year?
I don't believe we're going to spend additional labor costs because we're pretty efficient in how we handle these, and yeah, I think it'll be something that we can handle without additional labor costs.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Mormon, you can make your motion and comment.
Thank you. I move that CB 22-083, an ordinance amending Section 98-70, exempts sales and repealing and reenacting Section 98-78, exemptions of Article 3, sales and use tax of Chapter 98, taxation of the Arvada City Code, be approved on final reading number 4831 and ordered published by title only. I appreciate the work that you've done on this, and I know there's been a lot of behind-the-scenes work involved in this because I've been on my day job working on this issue. So I appreciate that and say that I think this is the right approach with these exemptions for our businesses to help them as they take on this new effort. It is I think going to be beneficial to our businesses because it'll help pay for those purchases of those bags as well, and also help our community. Plastic bags are the #1 litter item we find in our rivers and streams here in Colorado, and I know I get complaints from residents about plastic bags being blown into our open spaces and neighborhoods from like the nearby landfill, for example. So we do know that where these fees and bans have been in place across the country, we see a dramatic reduction not only in the use of bags, but also in that litter that I know comes also at a city cost. So I appreciate that as well. So obviously I'll be in support of this and look forward to our next conversation about how we'll be spending that revenue when it comes in. So thank you.
Mr. Marriott.
Thank you. I want to make a comment as well. So I'll be voting yes on this because this is the right thing to do to exempt retailers from having to collect sales tax on a fee. But make no mistake, my yes vote is in no way an endorsement of these fees. I find this, obviously this is not a City of Arvada issue, this is a state issue, and we have no choice but to follow it. But I find this to be the most micromanaging, invasive action by a state legislature that isn't so concerned with local businesses, I think, and is much more concerned with other things. And I believe that these fees are largely going to hurt the most vulnerable around us. You know, those of us who are more affluent have the ability to visit stores more frequently, easier probably for me to bring my own bags or do something different. But those people who are the most pressed for time, the most challenged in life, are the ones who largely are going to pay this fee. And I think it's a terrible regressive fee on our population that, while it might make you feel good, in the end doesn't do anything except harm some people. And so while I'm voting yes on this issue because it's the right thing for us to not charge sales tax in addition to these fees, I think these fees are terrible, and I wish the legislature hadn't done it.
Mr. Mormon and Ms. Simpson, if you cast your votes. Thank you. All votes are cast, and that passes 6-0 with the mayor being absent. Next item for public hearing is Council Bill 22-084, an ordinance amending subsection 102-34 paren C, section 102-34 applications for service and payment fees of Article 2, Chapter 102, Utilities of the Arvada City Code, Ordinance Number 4832. Ms. Gillis.
Utilities Director Sharon Israel.
Thank you. Ms. Israel.
Thank you, Ms. Gillis. The city's infrastructure work system continues to prepare for investments in operations and infrastructure as part of our ongoing commitment to continue to provide reliable water, sewer, and stormwater drainage services to our community. On Monday, October 17th, the City Council approved Council Bill 22-071, an ordinance pertaining to system development charges. That CB 22-071 will go into effect on July 1st, 2023 per Council's direction. On approval of CB 22-071, the City Council also directed staff to prepare an ordinance that would allow for payment of system development charges, also known as TAP fees, earlier in the development process, in order to provide additional opportunity for payment of those charges at the lower rate set in the current code, up to and including June 30th, 2023. So the ordinance before council complies with the council directive and will adjust the timing of when system development charges shall be paid. Currently, a system development charge can only be paid until after the foundation is poured and inspected for a new building. Under this ordinance, the timing would move up to when a building permit is approved and ready to be issued. If council approves this tonight, this ordinance would be effective through and including June 30th, 2023. That's this new one. After which Council Bill 22-071 will supersede and replace this ordinance. And again, that's the one that was approved by council on October 17th. The team recommends that this be approved.
Thank you very much. I'll open public comment portion, and there's no one here wishing to speak on this. I'll close the public comment portion of the hearing and open it up for council action or questions or actions. Mr. Marriott.
Yeah, I have a question, Ms. Israel. So this ordinance will just cover from now till June 30th, 2023, and in the new fee schedule, am I hearing that the timing of when you can purchase those TAP fees is already in there? Is that correct, or will it go back to the way it was?
You're correct the way you described it.
Okay.
So what this ordinance does is it moves up the implementation date of that, the change we're making, so that going forward, everyone can pay their system development charges as early as the building permit is ready for issuance.
Right, got it, okay. That's all. That's the only question I have if there's no one else who
Mr. Pfeiffer.
would like to.
All right, go ahead and proceed with the motion.
Thank you. I move that Council Bill 22-084, an ordinance amending subsection 102-34, principle C of section 102-34, application for service and payment of fees of Article 2, Chapter 102, Utilities of the Arvada City Code, be approved on final reading numbered 4832 and ordered published by title only.
Motions for approval. All votes are cast. And that passes 6-0 with the mayor being absent. Thank you, everybody, for the work tonight. Some great updates and conversations. Appreciate that and the work that we do here on council. Our next is our second public comment time, and we don't have anyone scheduled or signed up for that. So we'll go right into council reports. Are there any council reports from anyone? Ms. Simpson.
Thank you. So one of my council assignments is that I sit on the board of the Arvada Center, and a couple of big things. So Beauty and the Beast is going on right now as the holiday show. It's really delightful, I will say. Tickets have been selling out quite crazily, better than pre-pandemic numbers, which has been crazy for this particular show. We have actually had instances of tickets appearing on third-party websites for resale at higher value, which is nuts. Just remember, you can only get tickets via the Arvada Center website. This is not a Taylor Swift concert. Some perspective, but it's a delightful, delightful show. Only matinees that left are Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, so make a thing of it with the family. And I believe there's some evening tickets left, but they are selling out quite quickly. That, and then the Arvada Center Gala is in April 15th for Damn Yankees. It's going to be a baseball theme. Ticket prices go up, as well as table prices go up on the first of the year. So if you want to go to that, get your tickets now and save yourself 25%.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gillis.
Just a couple dates for council. As a reminder, next week we have a workshop that is on Infrastructure Master Plan Strategic Result Update. So that is on December 12th.
On December 19th, we'll have a study session with, regarding your legislative agenda, and we will likely be bringing in our lobbyist that will be helping us through the 23 session. I also want to remind you that although originally scheduled for December 12th, the study session on homelessness, that has been moved back till January 9th. So I'm going to say one more time, the study session on homelessness will be on January 9th at 4 o'clock.
All right. Thank you very much. Ms. Morris, anything for us?
Nothing for me, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We stand adjourned.